So today we're talking my WSAs, or wellness spending accounts. And much like HSAs and a lot of things that we seem to do in business, they're called a whole bunch of different things in the industry. So we typically see lifestyle spending accounts, or the other popular one is personal spending accounts. But even too, we'll hear the term flexible spending account for a wellness account. But basically, these are very simple. The employer decides what employees can claim on, and these are taxable benefits. So the nice thing about these accounts, especially with us, is that the list can be whatever the employer wants. And then on the employee side, taxable benefit. So let's talk taxes real quick. So anything paid out in the span of a year is a taxable benefit to the employee. Now, these are done two ways. It's either done through payroll or added to the employee's T4 at year end. When we're talking with an advisor and the accountant, there'll be different views on which is proper. Some accountants see adding it to the employee's T4 at year end, not a big deal. Other accountants like to see it done at payroll. So just to let you know, when you're talking with accountants, they might have a different opinion, and either is fine. Either one is not an issue. With our system, all of the reporting, so we've got a taxable benefit report that the plan admin can run at any time they need, and pick and choose a start and end date for dates. So they can run this anytime they need, and they can give a report that will break down if they want to do it through payroll or for the entire year at the end on the employee's T4. So just know that from a system standpoint, it will do whatever they need it to do with whichever way they decide to go about it. But be prepared that some accountants will have different opinions, and just go with what the accountant that they work with is comfortable with. One of the common questions we get is, what does CRA allow to be put on a wellness list? And the truth is, their CRA does not dictate it. It's not like an HSA where they've got a specific set of items. These are taxable benefits, so it can literally be whatever they perceive that they want to facilitate through a wellness spending account. And it can be anything. We've got clients that just do one or two items, but we also have examples of very exhaustive lists. So things like reimbursing for pet insurance, stay on the pet theme, doggy or pet daycare during the day. We have to what's some other unique ones? Reimbursing for travel costs. So we've seen that. So things like books for school programs, holistic healers, all sorts of things. So super flexible. It can be a super fun way that the advisor and employer come up with a very creative list that's super specific to what they want to target. Another common question we get is for business owners. So when people first look at wellness spending accounts, they think these are amazing, and business owners are like, awesome, I want to run that through my company. And some do, but we always, and we really want to be clear and preference that with, we're not exactly sure why they do that. So again, we're losing business, but we think that as an advisor, you giving good advice and not biased advice is really the way to go long term. So why do we not think that these are a good fit for business owners? So it's taxable. So therefore it's the same as withdrawing the company out as a salary. That's number one. So there's not a huge benefit there personally as an employee. Number two is we charge a fee. So us and you charge an admin fee every time we pay out a claim. So not only are you withdrawing and taking as income, but you're paying us a fee. Now, for the employees and from the employer's perspective with rank and file employees, that totally makes sense because the whole system and claiming system is very easy to do. But if it's, say, for a one business or one person corp, they could literally just take the money out and spend it on whatever they want. And that brings me to my third point is not only are they paying a fee and being taxed as income, but there's some sort of list. So you're somewhat limiting what they can spend their after-tax money on. So we always bring this up because we're not sure. We always say, like, talk to their accountant. Some people do set them up, but we always kind of scratch our head and wonder why. Now, where they're really great is for employees. So how to position these for employees? So there's a really cool stat that I was reading from the 2018 Sanofi or Sanofi survey. I always mess up that name, or I'm not sure which way to say it. And basically, when they researched plan members' perspectives, when the plan member said that their plan meets their benefit plan meets their needs extremely well or very well, it was at 72% if they had a wellness program at work. If there was no wellness plan, that dropped down to 54%. Now, I just want to note on a side note that 73% is if they had a health spending account, and then 55% if they didn't have a health spending account. But because we're talking wellness today, it goes to show you that if you have some sort of wellness program at work, the employee values their plan way more. So it can be a powerful way to have the whole plan perceived much higher from the employee standpoint. So how are they structured? How are they set up? Just like an HSA, you can give a different amount to a different class of employees. You can do things like allow carryover and not carryover. Typically with wellness, we see no carryover just because the utilization is so much higher because, let's be honest, it's items that they really want to spend funds on. And you can give it to one class and not the other class. Again, different. It's not the hardcore CRA rules that are there around the health spending account. So you can really be creative on who gets the benefit. A lot of times too for, once you get into larger companies and you have an executive group that, is not the owners, but they want to give like the next level down group some sort of unique package, wellness is a great way to do it. So what happens as you're positioning it with the employees, sometimes a lot of times we hear is, why don't we just give them the money? And you can totally do that. From a tax financial standpoint, it's the same. But I always argue that wellness accounts have a huge perceived value by employee, much more than just giving them that dollar amount, as a form of a bonus or tax. The other thing is, once you give them that tax bonus, the employer can't control how they spend it. So if you get $500, they could go party for the weekend, they could go shopping for clothes, not use it on things where you want to influence and help them make healthier life choices. So you lose some of that control. And to be honest, I don't think the employee values that $500 the same way as the employer funding their gym membership or helping fund their golf membership or their yearly hockey fees. It just doesn't have the same perceived value. There's a funny story Tim tells about sitting in the airport and listening to two people have a conversation, and the one person was telling their friend how awesome their employer was because they paid for their gym membership. And he always thought to himself, well, it's like $250 a year. Like that's not much for an employer to tack on there. And she thought their employer was the greatest thing, was the greatest employer to ever, operate on this planet. And that made him really realize the value, that perceived value that employees get from having a wellness spending account or a wellness program at all. And the other thing I think of a lot is your employees are brand ambassadors of the company. So if you can make a small investment that there's huge value on their side for it, they're talking, and the example of the airport shows that exactly, is they are brand ambassadors for the company, and they value their employer more than maybe someone else would by not having that type of program. So there's value there as well too. The other thing I like to, when you're positioning it for employers, and to be honest, I wish advisors would be way more creative with these things, because it really opens up to a very unique conversation that you as an advisor gets to have with the company. And you can take it off of, well, we could just pay for gym memberships. You can go much more broader than that. So a lot of things and benefits, and employers now are looking kind of to their employees and saying, how can we influence the whole employee? So mental illness is more prevalent and on the radar. Like, how can we help them on the mental illness side of things, or the mental health side of things? The financial health. So, the number one, one of the top 5 stresses that employees have at work is due to personal financial situations. So how can you help them on that? On the mental health side of things, a great example is CRA's health spending account is very traditional with type of medical practitioners. Well, with a wellness spending account, you can now start to get into the whole holistic practitioner realm. And many employees really value this. So Reiki is a great example of that. And then on the financial health aspect of things, many small to mid-sized employers, maybe you don't have a group RRSP plan in place, and you could think that, or be concerned that your employees are worried about their financial situations. So one option is that on a taxable standpoint, people will do individuals RRSP contributions. The other thing that I've seen before is on the item list, they will fee-for-service advisors, financial advisors, so they can submit, if they paid out of pocket to see a financial advisor, they can recoup some or all of that cost. As well too, and I think this strikes a chord with our demographic at our office, is a lot of us are, both parents are working, and we've got little children that are either in daycare or in after school or before school care. And anyone who's put their kids in those programs, they are really expensive. So it creates an added financial stress in someone's life. Well, that can be added to a list. So we really kind of try and get the advisors to not just take our default list. Like, we have a default list, but you can go well beyond that. And we've got examples to share if anyone ever wants to see a very exhaustive list on wellness items. Like, you can really take this to the sky. Like, the limits, there's not a lot of limits on it. But be more creative. It allows you to have a much a much deeper conversation with the employer, and it's a great way to have a different conversation off just traditional insurance renewals and issues with drug costs and that sort of thing. I always like to tell the story, like when we're talking about how to position it for employees and how to help advisors open these up for companies. I like to use my own individual, how we actually got into this, with the caveat that you should talk to every client you deal with and just ask them if they have an in-house wellness spending account that they do. And I think you'll be amazed how many actually do have one in-house. You just don't know that they do it. And then you get the opportunity to just put forth a possible solution. They might feel that it's perfectly fine doing it in-house on Excel. They get to decide what gets paid out, totally fine. But at least you can bring a solution forward to say, like, if that is ever a pain point or you want to take that off your desk, we have a solution for you, and it can be automated in the employee experience. It's digital. And if they also have an HSA, it looks and feels very much similar. So the experience is the same. So at least you can have an option for them if they ever need one. But how we got into the business originally, as many of you know, we used to run a HSA by paper using Excel, basically an Access database to keep balances. So we did it the way that many of the providers do it, old school paper, and it was a lot of work. But we did it, and we had a decent sized block of business going through it, so we were in the business. And I was going to see about 150 employee home builder group, and they actually said to me, why don't you guys do what you do for us in the HSA, but do it for wellness account? And I was a brief stint as an accountant before, so my accounting brain went, well, it's a taxable benefit. You could just track this stuff on Excel, what you're doing. Like, why would you pay me a fee to do it? And their points were very valid, as they basically said they hated being judge and jury on what claims went through and what didn't for their peers. So it put them in a real awkward position to say that Jerry's yoga pass was okay, but Judy's Reiki wasn't. So there's not a big structure, and they hated being the go-to person to say what is and isn't allowable, and then having to deny their co-workers' claims put them in a very awkward situation. They also hated the Excel spreadsheet standpoint. It probably is one of those things where they didn't see enough activity that it would get sloppy and balances might be incorrect, which puts them in an awkward situation. It's not a very robust system that they had. So they kind of said, like, I said, well, I got to charge you a admin fee because anything goes through the system. And they were like, we would gladly pay for that. It takes the headache off our desk. We don't have to have these awkward conversations with coworkers. We're big enough now, 100 plus employees. We're big enough now where the claims processing is annoying. They just kind of said, like, if you will build that into your back end paper system, we would gladly pay for it. And then when I came back and talked to Tim, he's just like, of course. I wonder how many, other clients we have that are having this exact same experience. And then we built it for one. And that's been a part of, even before we built My HSA, the platform, we were doing wellness accounts through our old paper system. So they're super valuable. I would stress that it's another talking point and a reason to touch base with your clients and just ask them if they do one and how they like it. And you might be surprised with the answers that you get, that there might be an opportunity for you to round out the client and put a WSA or My WSA wellness account in for them. The other thing too is, in the industry, typically larger insurers have very big minimums on when they'll set up a wellness taxable account. And then the other side of that is, because they're big insurers, the list of eligible items is quite limited. So basically they identify these items, it can't be changed, it can't be customized, so you don't have that high level of customization. And that's even for large groups, so you can customize, so a lot of the market, just small to mid-sized market, just have never had an option for wellness spending accounts. So a lot of them do it, and they do it in-house because the need for employees and the value, they're here and they've been here, and employers know that. They just need a tool to manage it, and that's where you can come in. So thanks for taking the time, and we'll start to answer any questions that anyone might have. So you can start throwing those into the chat feature on the webinar, and we'll start answering those questions.